Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sales Uncharted. Now, I have promised my listeners that I'll keep bringing very unique individuals, very learned individuals that can actually contribute and give us something that we don't typically get. That's one of the reasons why I never bring sales VPs onto this call because I do not want to get into technique. I don't want to get into ride alongs. I brought along someone very, very, very interesting. And I'm going to make him blush a bit when I talk about him. But Sumit Pundhir joined us today. And Sumit, I actually bumped into Sumit by chance. I was on LinkedIn and I saw a couple of posts, but then I actually saw a newsletter and I went into the newsletter and I kind of liked what I read. And I said, this is interesting. This seems to be an individual that's a practitioner, but also has a way to write about what he's experiencing and practicing. And as I started engaging with Sumit, I actually felt that there's a voice that I wanted to bring to this forum. So, Sumit, welcome to the show. I really hope we're going to have some fun today. I really want to pump and get some insights from you on sales and take it from there. But Sumit, the first thing I'd like to do is start off by, my audience knows me and they sometimes hate the fact that they know me because I talk so much. But Sumit, let's start off asking a very simple question. Just do me a favor and introduce yourself. Tell me about your journey. What pain do you solve for? And honestly, in the most crudest way possible, all I'm asking you to do is convince my audience that they should spend the next half an hour, 40 minutes listening to you. Over to you, Sumit.
So Deepak, thank you very much, and you did made me blush. So mission accomplished. Uh, as far as who am I goes, so I'm someone who likes to experiment into sales. My domain is typically B2B sales. I've spent slightly more than 2 decades, 23 years in to specific, and then what I have been doing is understanding that in sales, what it looks is not the reality. What you
Okay.
feel, your gut seems to be the most important aspect of sales. You also ask that what problems do I address. So for me, the whole gamut of sales can be described into only three aspects: is people, process, technology. So when
Yep.
you talk of people, it's the group which drives the intent. When you talk of process, it is the consistency part of it, and technology which eventually drives the scale. Today, across the board, the only and only trouble we all have is that we don't have a good mix of all three. So I
Yeah.
try to be the catalyst who can mix all three and get what people want.
No, I respect that because, Sumit, if you think about sales, pure sales, right? It's got process because we have to follow a certain process. It's got technology, the typical CRM tool sets, and so on and so on. But the people element, I would say, is also very critical, right? It's a three-legged stool, and I would argue, and I don't know what your feeling is, but do you feel that any of those three legs in that stool is more important than the other, Sumit?
For me, the most important leg, which eventually supports the remaining two, is people.
Hmm. Yeah.
You said technology as CRM. For me, the belief in CRM is more important than the technology part of it. The software can come at a later stage. If you don't have that belief system in the process, it will not work.
I
So
would
if
agree.
I have
Yeah.
to, it is very difficult to balance a stool which has one strong and two weaker legs. But if I have to be partial, I would say that the people leg would be a bit more stronger than the other ones.
I think the way I'm reading what you're saying, Sumit, is that you may have imbalance, but sometimes you are able to totter on that one or two. But if you have a failure on the people leg, you're bound to fall down because the people leg is the one that will support other two objectives. I would, so theoretically, one would always argue that you need all three to be equal. But you and I know that that's not just how life operates. At the end of the day, there has to be
Not at
something
all.
which is critical. And I think people, I would agree with you because to me, people is more than just a physical person, right? You're talking about his mindset, his attitude, the behaviors that that person brings to the table. And you're right. If you look at CRM, and Sumit, you and I are people with gray hairs and wisdom in our minds. We've been watching CRM game for the past what 3 decades now, at least, right? And in 3 decades, Sumit, I've actually realized one thing. It was designed for leadership. It still remains designed for leadership. The reality is that do I at what point does it start delivering returns? I don't know. I do know one thing. Some of the top sales reps don't spend hours and hours on CRM and become top sales reps necessarily, right? At the end of the day, CRM usage by itself is not going to make you a top sales rep. There are other attributes that need to come into play. So I like the fact that you have the three-legged stool. I like the fact that we're acknowledging that there are three components or buckets to look at. Let's get deeper into it then. So Sumit, I'm going to actually ask you a difficult question right up front, because I can see that you're a people's person, right? And for a people's person, I look at salespeople today, right? And I look at some of the rock stars. I see sales teams are working and they're what they call relentlessly busy, right? Sumit, back to back kaam kar rahe hain. They're just working. And I switched into Hindi there for a second, but I just get carried away. Eh, I have a question for you though. All that effort, but still, I think they are structurally unproductive in terms of outcomes. Am I missing something here? What do you see?
So, if you have to drive from one city to other, you can have best of the car, you can have best of the road, but if you start going in a wrong direction, you will never reach that city.
Yep,
People being busy is not an indicator of that they are doing the right things.
I would buy that.
During my MBA days, we used to make a jargon for people who are extremely busy is LBD and looking busy doing nothing.
I like that. So I think I got my next T-shirt slogan.
So being busy and being productive are two entirely different things. You can be extremely busy, but without a direction, you will never reach your destination. So for me, what is important is, and I will just relate it to the same CRM bit which you mentioned that we are struggling for 3 decades, is that the moment you replace CRM with the digital diary of the salesperson, that he's recording what he has done.
Yeah,
Now he has a tool by he can redirect himself. He can see where he's going wrong. And the moment the direction is right, even if the road is bumpy, the guy will reach the
the
destination.
guy will reach the yes. I kind of felt that there was a point. Yes, I agree with that, Sumit. But Sumit, I have a question for you. But you're not saying that you are throwing out CRM, right? You're not negating CRM per se. That's not what I'm hearing in your argument. I think what you're saying is that if we are going to get down to a journey, and if you're going to, how do you say this? Busyness is the criteria. We need to remain. So if I understand you right, I have a CRM and I'm relentlessly busy in it, but I don't attach it back to the outcomes. You use this term digital diary. What exactly are you implying by that, Sumit? Is this something like we live in an age of AI? Is this a simplistic way of now saying that a salesperson is now literally putting in what's on his mind into the environment, or was there a different connotation when you use that phrase?
So for me, a salesperson has to look at CRM from the way he can leverage it, not from the way
Right.
it was designed for a management as a MIS tool.
Right. Upwards.
So if I'm a salesperson and I was a salesperson for 15, 16 years of my life, everyone where when he goes to customer, he takes a piece of paper or nowadays he takes a tablet or a laptop and he writes what he has discussed and what he is going to do next and when he is going to do next. And these diaries have this beautiful habit of getting lost. The day you will need that diary, you will never find a trace of it.
Got
So
it.
rather than making a secondary stock, if I create my primary record inside the CRM, number one, it helps me to be on the task. Number two, it reminds me that I have to deliver something, maybe a white paper, maybe a catalog, maybe
Maybe
a
I can.
quotation. And then it also ensures that I don't miss leads.
Fair.
The whole cycle of my lead being an opportunity and my opportunity being the real opportunity, that is only possible when the system is bottoms up. If you keep on looking at any system as only a reporting mechanism, then you will end up with a concept which you call it pipeline honesty. I read
Mm.
something very interesting in one of your document. You talk about pipeline honesty.
Let's dig into that then. If I look at your belief on CRM and I see that you are heavily in the favor of the individual's thought process being part of it and being into it. So when we talk about pipeline honesty, there are sales leaders who are listening to this call and they will not understand the concept pipeline honesty, but they'll understand pipeline strength. Oh, I have 4x coverage. Oh, I have 3x coverage, right? I have 40% of my deals in sales stage one. I have 20% in sales stage two, and so on, so on. And they look at that funnel and then they look at velocity and so on. To me, that's pipeline strength metrics. But we talk about pipeline honesty. What do you think is happening to sales leaders when they see this pipeline strength versus pipeline honesty conversation? What needs to change, Sumi?
So for me, it's only 2 point theory, not 3 points. Only 2 points theory. Number one, is it hope or is it real?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And second thing, if tomorrow you are not there, will the deal still be there?
Tell me more about the second point. I'm curious.
So I was 2 years old in my first job,
Right.
and then I was going gaga about my pipeline strength that I have 36 projects which will come in next 6 months, and I will do this and I will do that. And I went into my manager's cabin. My manager was very calm person, extremely calm person. He said, "Okay, wonderful, great job done. Sit down. If we transfer you tomorrow to head office,
Yeah.
what will happen to these 36 transactions? Because if you are the only one who knows about it and you are the only one who can handle it, then you are indispensable. Then you will never grow in your life. You will keep on doing what you are doing right now.
Mm.
A pipeline is not for an individual, a pipeline is for the organization. So, irrespective of who's handling the case, if it's not based on hope, then a more capable person will come at place of Sumit and he will handle the transaction.
Correct.
But if it's dependent on hope, then only Sumit has to go to church every Sunday, pray for it, and then some days it will
Then,
rain, some days it will not.
but Sumit, this is interesting because in one fell swoop, you've actually done something very unique here. If I think about growing salespeople as well, right? And you few as a salesperson is having this conversation. Now, Sumit, there's something also that came out when you were talking, right? If your calm manager is sitting there and he's looking at Sumit as someone that could potentially be his successor, but Sumit is not showing evidence of being able to, how do you say this, prepare his pipeline in such a way that it can be actually handed over to someone. And you become, what was that word you use? Indispensable, all right? That you're the only one that actually, isn't that like a blocker to growth then, Sumit? Would you buy that argument?
A lot of times we enjoy our own misery. Being indispensable is like enjoying your own misery. You
My
feel that
God.
you are extremely important, you feel that the world will not move without you. What exactly you are doing is you are ensuring that you remain in that chair till eternity.
Yeah. And now that is the angle that Sumit popped out in my mind. And I'm really grateful that you actually touched upon that because I think there are many people on this call, right? And we have this joke as well. Sumit, I think you've heard it, right? If you want to destroy a great salesperson, promote him to a sales manager or a sales leader, right? Because there are certain attributes there. Would you buy that argument as well? Or are we looking for something different?
So, another life story. I was 32 when I was given an All India profile, and my manager was a French guy. And then I was having a cup of coffee with him one day. He was having his espresso. I was still trying to get over a black coffee. And then I asked him
Agreed.
that, Mark, what would you advise? And he only said me one thing, that don't look for another Sumit in your team. You work with people and people are different. Everybody will have a different motivation to work. Everybody will have a different work ethic. Everybody will have different energy levels. If you start looking for your Xerox copies, the only person who will be affected is you. You will get more frustrated. You will have more work on your table. You will tell people it's you are not capable. Let me handle it. But then think that if your managers would have done this with you, would you be in here? So if you want to promote a guy, please prepare him.
Yeah.
The biggest problem we have right now, and what you said is right, that we just promote people because he has more gray hair now.
Yep.
But we don't
Years.
prepare him. But we don't prepare him to become a manager. And then when he fails, all of us say, "Look, the guy did not had caliber. The guy had a wonderful caliber to be an exceptional salesperson. You never prepared him to become a manager."
Yeah. I think this is a great pivot. I really enjoyed that, Sumit, because I think a lot of people on this call, right, they always look at growth. And in sales in particular, I've always told people if you're an individual contributor, you can also still grow in sales, just go bigger portfolios, bigger income, right? That's another path.
Yes,
It's not an
correct.
easy journey this side, but I do like what you said about Mark and his leadership style, right? I think it is a very profound point you made this, Sumit. If you are going to hire like-minded or similar, as you said, Xerox copy, photocopies of you, then you have simply gone and filled your team with people that are going to be like-minded, think, and they'll all fail also similar to you. Whereas sometimes you need to get balance in the team. And I think that's a very big learning in that conversation that you just had there, right? Now, if I were to keep talking about leadership, and let's now look at certain attributes. Now, you've been in leadership roles, you've seen some leaders, and you mark as a conversation that you just had, right? What examples have you seen where leaders think they're doing good, that they have the right intent, but are quietly eroding culture? They're destroying the sales, people's belief in the system. They're doing something that's just awkward or wrong. Going back into this 20-year cycle of yours, right? What evidence, what examples could you throw at me?
So, first thing which people do terribly bad is that they hire their own selves. The same point which you
It
said.
is, yeah.
Now you have suddenly 20 Sumit in one room, everybody is thinking alike, and then there is no challenge. There is no challenge to the thought process. There is no conversation. One of the guys says something, rest 19 agree, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. Group
If
think,
you
yeah.
do not have if you do not have that challenge within that room, then what will happen? There will never be tough conversations. You will always be consistent with one set of thoughts. And then lot of times it actually creates mediocrity in the organization because all of you start accepting what is happening. None of you is actually challenging the convention.
Mm. But Sumit, can I challenge you on this for a bit here, right? Let me go back to some things we throw at people. Something like this. If you're an A grade person and if you start hiring B grade people, then B grade people will hire C grade people, and within a year or 2 years, your organization would have fallen in its standards. I heard that. Then you have another school of thought that actually says hire people for potential, even if they are B, bring them on board, but work with them to make them an A. And I think that there's this confusion between the two. But as I listen to you, I would love to throw this challenge back to you. Do you see any enlightenment or any formula that you could share with us that makes sense? When do we find people that can get the job done, and when do we grow people? Is there a difference between those two scenarios?
So for me, the scale is very simple. That whom are you hiring? If you are hiring somebody at a managerial level, hire for culture. Don't hire for skill set.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you are trying to develop something which is cutting edge technology, something which is unheard of, you need great scientists. Otherwise, you need people who will come and understand your culture, who will work within your culture, who will be the flag bearers of your culture.
Flag bearers. Got it. Yep.
And unless you have that synergy at the managerial level, the tier 2, the tier 3, the tier 4 problems will always remain. In my view, what is the biggest problem the B2B sales has? That the person who's actually going to customer feels that he's not getting a good hearing. Nobody is actually understanding his problems. His
Okay.
boss, his boss who has spent 15 years in the field is now behaving in a different way. He's not even willing to understand that there is a problem at the field. And
Sumit,
that's how, yes.
no, I don't think you finished because I get questions always popping. But keep going. Finish that thought first, then I'll come back.
So if you're hiring for culture and if empathy is your culture, then irrespective of what problems he has, you will at least give him a hearing, and then maybe you will give him an advice which will help him, or at least the guy will felt heard.
Sumit, let me challenge you on this, right? Because if I look at sales leaders when they talk about hiring, I know that you want to cut against the grain. I respect that. But most leaders will always fall into a reverse trap. They look for immediate deliverables. I want to penetrate banking and financial. Therefore, let me go get someone with 10 years in banking and financial, even if he's a bad cultural fit. Have you ever seen these type of theories being successful, or am I oversimplifying this?
So there are complex situations. there are situations which will call for such decisions. And for me, the proof of the pudding is that person still remains in that organization. You may bring a superstar from outside. He will
Yeah,
get you a deal. He will get you a transaction. He will put you in front of managing director of a MNC.
yeah.
But then, if the guy does not enjoys in that culture, he will not remain there forever.
But you just flipped the lens on me, didn't you? Here is a question on sales leadership, what they should do, but you now made this very interesting. You made this into an agency point of view. I have an individual came in for a particular set of skills. He is now finding himself in a culture which leads him to question why is he there in the first place. That's a different angle, and I respect that. It's a very good angle because you've actually said that. Now, let me ask you the same question, but now looking from a sales leader's point of view. This guy is now frustrated because he's now in a culture that he cannot relate to, but most of the world will blame it on him for not fitting in, whereas the hiring manager made an. So let me ask you a direct question, Puneet, and this is a question that gets me into lots of trouble, so I hope it gets me into trouble with you also. Sumit, when I see a sales leader telling me that I have 10 people that are making the quota, but I also have 10 that are not making the quota, and I'm going to fire those 10, the first question I ask him is, who hired those 10? And they usually tell me proudly, I hired them. So, what's the first thought goes into your mind when you hear something like that?
A failed employee is 50% manager's responsibility. As
Would
simple as that.
you? And I would agree with you because I think this is something that is missing from sales literature. I wish the sales literature would actually get deep into this and actually help me make sense of this, Sumit. We have sales managers proudly telling me, and I look around right now. This is this at least in the US where I'm located. Sumit, it's a bloodbath. The amount of people looking for jobs on LinkedIn is the highest I've seen in my career, frankly. Right now, and someone told me, "Ah, no, Deepak, it's the algorithm. Don't worry, it's the algorithm." I'm like, okay, so it's algorithm. But I look at the seniority of the people. For me, it's not just your novice or someone starting. These are people with 10, 15, 20 years experience that are suddenly being let go or being released out there. So I like this approach that you mentioned. At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself simply, if you had this person and the day of his interview and the process, he was the man or the woman for the job, what then changed? Sumit, have you ever thought about what happens? And I think you gave me the answer from this side. And I really like the fact that one thing that could have changed Deepak is that he was a cultural misfit. And now it's been revealed. So therefore, he is now finding himself. What other things could possibly go wrong, Sumit? Is it just maybe is it territory? Is it the sales leaders' behavior that changed? What's your experience on that front?
It's never one thing or other. It's always a mix. But
Combination. Yeah.
I would quote one of my favorite authors here. So I read Simon Sinek a lot,
Yes.
and then he mentioned something very interesting in one of his podcasts, that all these problems of layoff started when we started counterbalancing our balance sheets with the people cost. So you have a bad quarter, and the first thing you think is that I will remove some people, I will balance my balance sheet.
Yeah.
When we say human resource, it does not mean that you trade them off for compensating something wrong which you have done last quarter. And then why people fail is a complex question. It's not something very simple. Maybe he had a bad marriage and he's not able to focus on the work.
Yeah,
Maybe he's
and by
going
the way,
through.
Sumit, that's a very profound point you make because I'm a coach, right? And in my conversations, you're spot on. 70% of the time, it's not one single reason; it's a multiplicity of things that are happening, and there may be a
Yes,
confounding variable that forces you to think about it, which you're absolutely right. And in that scenario, I would say there's majority people that actually. Now I know that in the 80s they used to tell us, Sumit, please don't bring your personal baggage to work. And now they tell us, no, no, personal baggage is welcome. And in fact, here's a 1-800 number that you can call for mental health also, right?
absolutely.
But so I like that angle. And in fact, I think I would love to get deeper into that. But Mujit, I'm going to ask you one simple question. If I am a hiring manager, right, and I am, let's say, first time sales manager, and I'm hiring for the first time, what guidance would you give in terms of either one idea or two ideas or more if you would like to, that would help this sales manager hire the right people upfront the first time itself?
First thing, and the most important thing for me, if you're hiring a lateral person, if they are hiring a person who's already working somewhere, Does he takes pride in representing what he's selling right now?
Ooh, that's an interesting angle. Yeah.
He's here for a job interview because he's working somewhere. His that job is his credential. His graduate degree, his master's degree is not his credential anymore. If he does not takes
Agreed.
pride in what he's doing right now, he will not take pride in what you will tell him to do.
Hmm.
And if people don't take pride in their work, then it's just a 9 to 5 job. The guy will appear at 9, disappear at 5. Sales is not a 9 to 5 job. Sales is a 24/7 job. I tell it to my first year trainees that sales is not a job, sales is a lifestyle. This is the only job which allows you to represent organization outside its boundaries. You are the ambassador of the company.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, you wear best of your clothes, you drive best of the cars, you eat at best places,
Yeah.
you meet the industry experts, you meet the higher ups across any organization. It is not a job, it is a lifestyle. If you can't devote your 24/7 into it, you will never succeed. And I'm not saying you work 24 hours. I'm saying that when you are representing an organization, it's also a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. So if you can't take pride in it, don't do it.
But Sumit, let me challenge you on that. Tell me, how does a sales leader practically tease this out from this person sitting down? Because remember, during an interview, everyone is dressed their best, everyone is trying to put themselves, but you now need to dig in deep. What do you think is a great question or a set of questions to ask to kind of reveal a person's inner workings, as you called it, right? Is this a 9 to 5 guy? Is this a team player? Is this someone that actually has done what he says he has done? That validation, is there a process to it, Sumit? Do you look for certain characteristics?
People are simple. Everybody loves to talk, and everybody loves to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Everybody has a favorite character, which is I. If you
Oh, I.
if you allow them to speak, they will tell you everything which you don't even want to know. I'll give you an example. I was interviewing last month somebody fairly senior, and I asked him a very simple question. We were at 45, 48 minutes in our conversation, and I asked him that, have you ever found yourself in an ethical dilemma where your boss is telling you to do something which you do not want to do?
Yeah.
And the guy said, yes, I find myself often. Then I said, okay, what do you do? He said, what will I do? I just say what my boss says to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, the interview was
Interesting.
over.
Interesting. But Sumit, can I push you on that again? Is
Absolutely.
there is there a right answer though? What would that what would that right answer look like? Because I really want people to think about this because it's funny enough you raise that one because I'm very sensitive to this topic. For me, ethical dilemmas is what I call the slippery slope to purgatory, whatever that thing is. Once you start with it, once you take that adopt that attitude, what you just explained, right, Sumit? I can understand that attitude for things that don't matter. Someone took more helping of food than was necessary, ignore it. But someone stole and put it aside, then you can't ignore it. So I'm listening to you and I'm trying to figure out what would the right answer look like. And I really want to get people educated. And there's no answer. Maybe it's a framework that you want to share with us, Sumit. But how do you expect that answer to be given to you? I really think there's a learning moment here for some people listening in.
So, what you said is absolutely right. There is no right answer to it.
Hmm.
The only right thing is approach.
Fair.
It is
Yeah.
it is a situation. And then how do you approach that situation? How do you handle that situation? That makes you stand uh, on a different ground. I would have appreciated if that guy would have said that I will not do it, and I will discuss with my boss that if it is at most important, then let's do it together. Or you teach
This-
me that how to handle such situations.
Yeah.
Or even as simple as that I will at least have a conversation.
And keep going. I think there's a trick to this, right?
Yes.
The trick is,
Because your boss will also not stand for something which is unethical. Maybe this conversation needs to go on a deeper level where you understand that from where this all is coming up.
Hmm. Sumit, this is interesting because I do like what you're saying. Many times we jump to conclusions. Someone asks us a thing and we like, oh, we can't do it. It's bad. It's wrong. And I think what you're saying is hold, bring the person into the conversation, build that conversation up, and you may actually have a conversation which enlightens him in a much better way than having. So I like the sound of that. Now let's say that you have a manager that is bottom line deceitful. Sumit, you can have the conversation, but the intent is malified, right? If I can use that word in this context, right? What? Let's take this conversation back to this individual who now finds his value system under stress. In the earlier scenario, the person's value system was pretty flexible, goes with the flow, and you had a concern with that. Now let's say that you're sitting with someone who actually gives you very good metric and understanding. But now let's take the extreme situation. The guy is now completely inflexible. I hear it, I leave. I will not be involved. What guidance would you give to someone who is extremely inflexible also to have a proper conversation, have a discussion because they're reacting to just that surface level evidence of unethical activity, therefore I won't do it. I am borderline. I tend to be more on like, wait. Let me explain the intent of what you're trying to achieve. This is my favorite question to salespeople, Sumit. Whenever, so as a sales ops guy, I started my career in sales at age 33, 35, burnout, exited. But then I went into sales operations because I really wanted to support the sales function. And my favorite question always was, okay, I hear you. My first reaction is that I think this is not the right way to do it. I don't think it'll work, but let me understand what's your intent? What problem are you trying to solve for by this approach you're taking? And 90% of the time, Sumit, I would get something from this individual, or as he spoke with me, I would actually realize he's actually trying to go from point A to C. I can get him there, but he has to go to point B, then take a detour to D. Now, how do we smoothen this for him so that it happens fast and he doesn't feel like the system is geared against him? So you still deliver the outcome, but you then make sure that it goes through this ethical gateways. Maybe there's additional work, additional checklist, or some bypass or some of the consideration that needs to happen. So you now having an interview. Let me bring this back home to you. You now have a person that gave you a very answer that I go with the flow, but now you got this other extreme person that says I never go with the flow, I'm inflexible. What guidance would you give to that person then?
So, in any such situation, the honors of conducting that conversation lies with the person who has hierarchical superiority,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because clarity is something. See, all most of us and most of our salespeople, we expect them to make decisions with limited exposure, limited knowledge, and then we find somebody as a scapegoat and say you did something wrong.
Yeah.
If you give people enough knowledge, if you give people enough visibility, they would be able to take better decisions. And I'm not saying that you tell everybody everything, but the
Understood.
people but the people who are expected to make decisions, they should be brought on board. We had a case, again early in my career, where I visited with, I don't know, maybe my boss's boss, so my n plus 3.
Yeah.
Then and then we went and we had a cup of coffee. It was a big enough order, and the guy did not discuss about order at all for good half an hour. He was talking about all the things which I, at that point of time, I used to consider irrational. He was talking about weather, he was talking about from which
Yeah.
college he is. And then I came out, and then me being me, even 20 years back I was me. I asked him that, sir, we wasted half an hour. You could have at least asked him when are we going to get order. And then he told me, don't worry, the order will come to you. What he was trying to do, he was trying to create a conversation so that there is a comfort. And then when there is a comfort, the, even if it's a customer who's an external entity, will have trust in you, and he will discuss what he exactly wants to you to deliver.
Yeah.
We do not create that comfort, we do not create that conversation. Unfortunately, we are too wooed up by our emails, and we don't want to use verbal communication, we don't want to see people eye to eye.
Well, Sumit, let's talk about trust for a bit there, right? Because trust is one of those things that I've always told people. A great salesperson has to understand that trust is never given, it's earned. And I think your example that you gave of the senior person talking, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to humanize that relationship. Let the person get to know him better. Let the person drop his guard and have that belief level that, yes, this guy is someone I can trust. And if you trust, therefore the order comes. I think that was the logic he was applying there, right? So let's talk about trust and trust erosion, right?
And that order came, huh? Just for the record.
Bravo. So there we go. But Sumit, so the order came, and we've established that there's a mechanism by how to communicate with people and how to build trust, and then the order came. And I'm sure there's a salesperson on this call listening right now, and he's going to say, yeah, Sumit, but three times my boss did that, and we never got the order. And Sumit, I always tell people, don't get excited by a sample of one. In reality, and I think my instinct and my hypotheses would agree with you, Sumit, this is one of the things that the Sandler, because I'm a Sandler trainer, right? One of the things that we always talk about is that when you're qualifying, just take your time, do it slow, because the things that will happen later will speed things up if you do the small act upfront. And I think your boss at that point is also doing the trust building, right? Bonding, rapport, these things matter to a lot of people. But now let me talk about you about where trust goes. I'm a salesperson, Sumit, right? And I've been given a quota. I am at 92%. The deal that I'm about to go and talk to my customer about is exactly going to deliver that 8% gap that I'm facing right now. Whatever happens, hook or crook, my boss has told me, your job is to go and get this deal. So, with a mindset like that, do you think that trust can be maintained or trust is going to die? Any tips, guidance for us on this one?
We all are guilty of this, huh? We all have landed up at 92, 93, 94, 97%. And that one transaction is going to make or break my year.
Yeah,
We all have done that. But then we have to understand that when you say somebody close this no matter what, the guy will do that no matter what first.
yeah,
And then once he does that, if your revenue ends up breaking trust, it's a significantly large cost, especially in B2B, because you have to go back to the same set of people, you have to show your face next time also.
yeah.
If it's a one time transaction, beg, borrow, steal, you did a transaction, you came out of the room, it's all done.
It's done. Correct.
B2B is unique because you will remain in the same domain, the customer will remain in the same domain. I was trained by a great organization, I will not take their name, and the trainer was a South Indian guy, and he said that he used to represent a large healthcare organization, and this is the time where mobile phones were not there.
Yeah.
So he met a doctor, he came out, and then from the hospital premises PCO, he dropped a coin, called his boss, and he said, "Sir, I made a fool of that guy. The order is ours." He hangs up the phone. The doctor is standing behind him because the doctor had to call his house.
Oh, oh, wow. Please tell me what happens next. Sumit, this is one of those
I have
moments in a
no idea.
movie.
The guy just stopped the story there.
And now we are sitting here with our imagination still going wild after decades of that conversation, right? Yeah. So,
And if you realize it rationally, there are three things you can learn from it. Number one, at least come out of the customer premises before you start making tall claims.
agreed.
That's the
Yes.
simplest thing.
Yeah.
Number two, if you are selling something which is as complex as medical equipment, people are not buying the equipment, people are buying trust, because you are going to be playing with somebody's life.
Correct.
And third, which is the most important one, is that B2B runs on a simple concept called reference. When it comes to hiring, reference plays a major role. When it comes to selling, reference plays a major role. Irrespective of how many presentations you do, how many exhibitions you participate, your customer picking up the phone and calling someone that I use this product, I loved it.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend a penny on your marketing. You don't need to be on LinkedIn or Instagram, or you don't have to spend on exhibitions. You just need that one phone call, one guy calling other guy. I like the product. Why don't you try it?
Sumit, you know what's really interesting in what you just said here is that there are people listening in, and I'd like to call it out to them. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be surprised with how simple Sumit has shared something which actually can lead to quite a lot of money for you. Referrals is the most underrated, the most untapped. People lose a deal, and I've seen some rock star Sumit loses a deal, picks up the phone, calls the customer to thank them for the journey, and then actually tells them, can you think of anyone who could benefit from my solution, even though he's just been told that your solution is not the right fit for us? And here's something I wanted to share with you, Sumit. I actually tracked this over the course of time to see what is this nonsense. And there's something revealing that came through. 40% of the time when you ask a customer something like that, the customer says, that's a very interesting point. And Deepak, I just want to be clear. You lost the deal because of ABC, but I think my colleague at, let's say, Indo Spices, he has a different setup. Maybe you should speak to them to see, would you like me to connect you? Or you tell them, would you please connect us to them? When I first initially saw this in action, I, Sumit, was stunned because I thought that this is interesting. Here he is, lost a deal, but look at the courage of this individual to go back. And that's when I realized losing a deal is actually part of the plan. It happens, right? That's life. But the relationship that he has built, the respect and the trust that he's earned allows him to go back for those referrals also and to get a referral in account that you've lost. So with since then, when I coach salespeople, I like to ask them a simple question. When you lose an account, do you how many times do you actually go back to that customer to keep talking to them? Do you still keep sharing material with them? And have you ever had the courage to ask for a referral? They look at me like I'm mad or something. And I think that this point that you just made about referrals is one of the most under tapped resources that any salesperson can think about. All I'm saying on this call is push on this agenda very hard, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the areas that I really believe can deliver dividends. Getting someone else to vouch for you is much more powerful than to have to go sit in front of a customer and give them third party stories. I helped someone XYZ to do it, but now you actually have XYZ telling them how you helped them. I think that is a virtuous loop. I like that conversation, Sumit. Very, very powerful. Thanks for that. Sumit, as we start wrapping up this segment, I wanted to talk to you about, how do you say this? We spoke about trust. We spoke about behaviors. We spoke about the three-legged stool and stuff. Let's talk technology for a second here. And let me tell you what scares me. And you tell me that, no, 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 Deepak, please calm down, my friend. Have a glass of water. Sit. I'll hold your hand. So, with 4 years ago when AI came out, right, my first reaction was, what is this? This is nonsense because its output was weird. The way you interacted was didn't make sense, right? 6 months later, as I was sitting with it, I actually turned around and I said to my son, he was a software engineer at Microsoft, and I said to him, this is remarkable. When I first interacted with this thing, it was throwing information at me, and I did not know what to make of that information. Because Sumit, remember, you and I come from a very we are used to getting tons of information, then looking at it and saying what really matters. And I think ChatGPT, Claude, and these guys are very good at throwing so much dense material at you that you look at that and you say, "Wow, quantity over quality." Right? For me, the pivot started shifting as I started seeing the quality start rising, and then I realized that depending on how you prompt, AI has the capability to actually make you a better salesperson. I know it sounds heretical to say that, Sumit, right? But I actually felt that in the work that I was doing. Now I have a question for you. I now talk to salespeople, and salespeople are the ones that will always tell me, "Oh, I use AI, yeah, but I use it very limited." So I ask them, "Can you be honest with me and tell me how much do you use AI for?" Sumit, I can tell you, I would say that 70, 80, 90% of salespeople right now writing emails, LinkedIn DMs using AI. Basic stuff also. Write me a message that I can send to a CFO off and they'll give the company name. They think that that's personalization. And I was just shaking my head. What personalization? Just putting someone's title and putting in the name of the company is not enough. Do you know their pain? Do you know that? And that can only come from a one on one interaction, right? But now you do that interaction and now you bring in AI. Sumit, direct question to you. Do you believe that AI will take salespeople's jobs?
No.
And what if I were to challenge you? I need more than just to know. Tell me more.
So for me, AI is the most powerful support mechanism a salesperson can have. And if I if I have to give you an example, a recent example, two
Yeah,
weeks
please
back,
do.
2 weeks back, I went to meet a customer, a very senior guy. I did three things before I reached out to him. I opened his LinkedIn portfolio and see that what are his past responsibilities. within the same organization, outside the organization. I put it in AI, and I found that if a person has worked in such responsibilities under so many organizations, what should be the real pitch to reach out to him?
Yes.
And I was surprised to see that AI offered me insights which I could not comprehend. And third thing, that it it does not takes away the humanization of it. As you rightly said, you have to learn to live with it. You have to understand the prompt logic. You have to understand how to use it to your advantage.
Correct.
Today, with such a vast amount of information everywhere, if you can be on the point, then there is nothing more what people would like.
Yeah.
And AI gives you, yes, earlier it used to give quantity over quality, but then you have to be smart enough to pick that one line. And then one thing which AI cannot do is cannot do that handshake with customer sitting in front of him. You will always need a
That
human to look in the eyes and say, sir, even if something goes wrong, I'm standing here. I would be standing by you. So that trust which we spoke multiple times during the session, because that trust comes with consistency, it comes with taking accountability of actions if something goes
if
wrong.
something goes wrong. Correct.
So that trust cannot be replaced by a bot. And we will live in such complex situations that you will always need natural stupidity more than the artificial intelligence.
Oh, I love this. That's another T-shirt right there. Natural stupidity greater than artificial intelligence. Yes, I would like to be human for once. I like that. Sumit, two last questions. Right? They're both the same coin but flipped. Question number one is as follows: what advice would you give a 21-year-old entering into the sales arena? What would you tell him are the two things that they must just commit to doing right upfront that will compound their earnings, compound their satisfaction from sales function going forward? Two ideas from you for a 21-year-old entering the sales world today.
First, learn to listen. You don't have to offer a solution every time. You don't have to give an answer every time. One of my most important customer used to tease me because I had that habit that he will ask me a question, I will open the laptop, I will Google, I will look at the catalog, I will try to give him an answer.
Pura, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
he used to say that, the biggest problem with your generation is you don't like to sleep with a question. Listen to what I'm saying, digest it,
Yeah.
think it through. Come back tomorrow with an answer. Come back tomorrow even with saying I don't have an answer. So develop the habit of listening. And we both, as you mentioned, we both have enough gray hair. We understand that hearing is not equal to listening.
You know
So you
what's
need to
sad?
understand the skill.
Sumit, I'm crying inside. Let me tell you why. The story you just mentioned is the exact thing my boss told me. He says to me, Deepak, your biggest problem is you try to be the smartest person in the room and you just feel, when you're in a quiz, Sumit, they ask a question, first hand to hit the buzzer, touch, touch is the winner. He says, stop doing that. This is not a quiz. This is not a show. You are in such a rush to give the answer to impress. He says, you're not there to impress anyone. You're there to solve a problem, serve. I'm like, okay. Then he said something else. 2:1. And Sumit, I realized that at the end of the day, our ancients gave us these simple philosophies, right?
Correct.
And I think these are absolutely the ones that I would love to. Now, that's one idea. Maybe we just leave it at one. Let the listeners ruminate on that one. Now, I'm going to ask you the other question, which is the other side of the coin, which is now, Sumit, if you could travel back in time, looking at where you are today, and you were to walk into a nice Indian restaurant where you actually see your 21-year-old sitting, eating. He's sitting there alone. He's between a break. He's just got his first job. He's having a bite. You go sit up to him, sit down. He doesn't react. He looks up and he recognizes you and he says, wait, wait, are you the future? And you say, yes, I am. Sumit, what advice would you give your own 21-year-old looking back at your life that could have maybe improved your trajectory, done something different? What guidance would you give yourself?
So since I'm in a nice restaurant eating food, I will give him same advice. Don't rush with your food. You will burn your mouth. If
Simple
you really
truth.
want to enjoy your meal, give it time. Food gets prepared with patience, and food needs to be eaten when it's ready. If you rush the process, you will not enjoy the taste, you will burn your tongue, and most likely the food would be underprepared. Give it time. You don't have to rush everything. Build your depth before you start chasing the scale.
Got it. So you know what? I'm scared to be 21-year-old Sumit because that is such profound. Because I would initially react to me, 21-year-old getting that advice would say, "What are you talking about, old man? What food? What do you? I'm enjoying this. Will you stop?" And I think there's a bigger metaphorical conversation that you've just played at there, Sumit. Right? You've gone in very deep actually, and I'd like the audience to think about that a bit. Sumit, we're going to wrap up now. How do people find you, sir? How do we get to know more about you? Where do we follow you?
I'm everywhere, huh? Except
Yes,
my
obviously.
office, I'm everywhere. So,
Except my
so,
office, I'm
so,
everywhere. Okay.
so people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. People can reach out to me through my newsletter. Deepak, if I can take that favor from you, if you can just flash my LinkedIn ID and my newsletter ID, people
I
can
will.
reach out to me there. My
Absolutely.
email ID
I
is published there. People can reach out to me there. And if I can contribute in a meaningful conversation, I would be more than happy to do that.
yeah. In fact, just to emphasize, well, I will when we release the podcast, I will actually put a link into your newsletter. I highly recommend to people to kind of subscribe to the newsletter. I think it's a breath of fresh air. Sumit writes differently. No cliches. You will sometimes feel that it's very deep, but I just want you to, how do you say this? Sit back and in his own English, let the flavors hit you in the mouth. Absorb it. Don't rush to chew and swallow. Just kind of think about it. When I got his first, and there's always a sales angle to everything that he writes about, and a leadership angle as well, right, Sumit? I highly recommend to people that are not in sales listening in. Sumit's writing is such that you will still get a lot of benefit out of it because I've always said this, and Sumit, I think you will agree as well. Whether you believe in sales or don't even know how to sell, everyone is selling at any given point in their lives. If
Absolutely.
you have convinced, so I would always argue there's so much that sales offers to other professions. There's so much that travels beyond from sales into the profession that it's actually mind-boggling. I would actually honestly say to you, I just wish we could take all this knowledge we have, Sumit, and actually convert it into something different that simply says, here's the sales pill and here's the other nonsense. Just take the sales pill and you will actually be a better person, better outcomes as well. There's so much that sales people do which is so unique and so different. Sumit, I think we have crossed the patience of the listeners at some point, right? So let's just bring it down to earth now. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Sumit. Thank you very much. We got so much going on over here that I'm going to do a write up on this, and I can just picture this is one of those conversations where I can tell my audience right now, don't look for the bigger themes. Actually, look for the very granular points that Sumit made. I counted at least 8 or 9 T-shirt slogans that we've come out with, Sumit. Right, and I've always said to people, when you're living in a, how do you say this, information overloaded world, you sometimes need these small cliche sounding slogans and bites to think about and ruminate on. So when I do my write up on on this conversation, Sumit, my goal is not going to be to say that here are the 2 top things. That I'm going to simply say it, here are 8 learnings that I got from Sumit, and I'm going to try to cascade it down so that they can put that together in their minds. Sumit, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to hosting you again in the future sometime. Maybe we'll get a bit more deeper into and let's pick up a specific area of topic or expertise you have. Thank you very much for being here again, sir.
Thank you, Deepak, for this opportunity, and I look forward for more interactions.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.